Tony Schiavone inside of the ring welcomes back Britt Baker. She comes in, gives Tony a big hug, and then is handed the microphone. And she goes to explain that we all have a past, present, and future. The past is a lesson, the present is a gift, and the future is motivation. And she states for the last 10 months, she was injured and mentioned having several herniated discs and a torn hip labrum, but told herself she was fine. And she started feeling sick last year. The room was spinning, her vision was blurred, and started to develop tingling in her right arm, but told herself she was fine. She was not even able to open a bottle of water, and her right side stopped working, and she was hospitalized for a week with something called TIA, transient ischemic attack. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. There's a reason that they have used TIA to identify it. And explains that it's when the brain is not getting enough blood and is referred to as a mini stroke, and realized this was not good. And she told Tony Khan that she needed to go get better, and Tony told her to take as much time as she needed. And you could tell like the crowd almost seemed like they were just not expecting this level of information. Like, this has obviously been kept extremely quiet. And I think most people just assumed that this was a long-term injury that she was dealing with and coming back from. I hate to call it a standard injury, but not something so significant like this. And you had like just like a hushed tone from this crowd as they were listening to this. And you could see like this was a very difficult speech for Britt Baker, I think, to probably convey her thoughts. Like, she started it as much just stating she's just gonna talk about what exactly she went through.
I can't imagine how scary going through something like this is. I also can't imagine how difficult it was for her personal life to be with her partner, who also is injured. I mean, Adam Cole, I mean, we don't know when I guess she was feeling these symptoms, but like, I imagine Cole's still very much recovering from his own injuries, probably needed some care himself, and instead having to try to manage this, between the two of them. I mean, I imagine it must have been an incredibly difficult time.
Yeah, and she fast forwards. She's now cleared and is healthy, but she had never been as nervous as she was this past Sunday because she was unsure of herself. She didn't know if anyone would care when she came back, and she had the fear of rejection. But everyone welcomed me back, and for the chance that you gave me, I will never forget that. And tells the people that when you're going through things, you need to be present and go and experience them, because once you get through it, you're going to appreciate it that much more. And then kind of that was like the whole health side of things. And then she just transferred it to Mercedes Moné at this point, and just gets into full promo mode at this point, stating that there's a new face of the women's division, and makes fun of her for having to pipe in the chant CEO into her entrance music so the fans will chant it. But there's only 3 letters that matter in this company, and they are DMD, when Mercedes pulls up outside of the arena and makes her way inside. But like the first half of this, I mean, this was like a really like compelling speech that was just kind of out of nowhere.
It was. I thought it was incredible. Like, Britt's cut a lot of great promos, so I'm not going to say this is her best promo, but this, I think, was probably her most real and personal speech that she's ever given, maybe ever in her professional wrestling career. I think the vulnerability she showed was, I mean, it felt very genuine. I love the way she structured the promo, talking about the past to the present to the future, and just kind of like taking us through the narrative of what she went through, how she felt coming back, and the real sort of like the fear of rejection that she was going through just on Sunday. It was a very great speech, the type of speech that felt bigger than just a professional wrestling promo, and almost more of like a personal, storytelling. So between this and the Willow promo, I mean, I thought the women on the show up until this point were killing it on the microphone so far.
So Mercedes arrives, and the Young Bucks are there to greet her and state that her championship celebration is ready, as we get the production team coming down to set up the celebration, which consisted of 2 photos and about a dozen or so balloons. This was the saddest looking celebration I have ever seen in pro wrestling. And you've got Baker in the middle, just standing among these gold balloons as Mercedes comes down, makes her entrance, and the crowd is chanting DMD at her, booing Moné. And Baker says, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to upstage me just like I upstaged you at Forbidden Door. And Moné says she is a real star. The crowd is just on her. And Baker just cuts to the chase. She wants to challenge her at All In. I wrestled on the very first All In here in Chicago. I was the first female to be All In when I signed the contract. And I wrestled last year at All In at Wembley while you were looking like a broken bitch with a broken leg in the stands. And Moné just looks at her and just puts up her hand and pie faces her right in the face and says, there is a long list of opponents, so you get to the back of the line, bitch. Baker responds, bitch, what line? It's like, we are on. It's like, man, we have got a program, Way. We are not, you try and top this, Max Caster, and says there's a price to pay when you mess with Mercedes Moné. And she holds up her belts and leaves. So earlier than I thought we were going to get this challenge, but clearly, like, this is where we assumed this was going, but they're making it very clear, almost 2 months away from this match, that they're going to spend the next 6-7 weeks building.
I mean, that is the next pay-per-view on the horizon. This was essentially the start of our build to All In as our next pay-per-view, right? So why bother wasting the time? I also wonder like how at this point frequent Moné's in-person appearances are going to be. So with her, I think almost like the less the better. It keeps her sort of superstar status like that much I guess more apparent if she only makes infrequent appearances. And for that reason, I don't think it hurts at all to just like have one of these main events, you know, be announced already this far in advance. I thought this was a very hot segment for what already feels like a very hot program. This has the potential to be AEW's biggest women's match that they've ever promoted. We have Mercedes Moné now, between coming out with the Elite's approval to just her general demeanor in this match. She's a confirmed heel, at least for this program, and it's suiting her so much better already. She seems so much more comfortable playing this CEO character. Just her manner of speaking, you know, whether or not she's authentic doesn't matter anymore, because as a heel, it helps you to be inauthentic. So she, to me, like in this segment, finally feels like she's living up to the potential that I think we all expected when she signed with the company. She actually feels to me like a bigger star in this heel role than she did in already like the past, 2-3 months. And Britt Baker, I mean, as a babyface like return goes, I don't think you could have expected better from her. Like, she already feels like the top babyface, maybe outside of like Toni Storm, in terms of star power in the women's division here.